Welcome to the GameSpot Show. On today's episode, we talk about the long-rumored Oblivion Remaster and Blooper Team's next game, Cronos.
Hey there, sir. $1.
Here we go.
Thank you very much.
And now, your host, Kurt Indavina.
Yeah, welcome to the GameSpot Show. That's right. Right about now, there'd be an applause for the empty room that no one is in. That's fine. I'm Kurt Indavina, your host. We have an exciting day today, an exciting day for the GameSpot Show. We don't have any reviews, but we have two things that I think are more than cool to talk about. One of them being this little thing called Oblivion. Has anybody heard about this? Does anybody know? It was leaked, apparently. I mean, it's been leaked a couple times, so it's not really official. If you didn't already see the leak from the FTC lawsuit that happened back in 2022 when they had to release all these documents and it showed that was a thing that was happening, well, it was leaked again. This time we actually got screenshots. But we have a Jake Decker joining us, who is a certified Oblivion freak. They're here. And then right after that, you should stick around because we're going to be talking about the game Cronos: The New Dawn, which this guy got to see in person. Hands off, but I saw it. So stay tuned for that later in the show because we're going to talk about it. But in the meantime, let's talk about Oblivion with Jake Decker.
Whoa, where were you?
A little place called Oblivion.
Is that what we're talking about?
It is. We're talking about Oblivion, a game that was assumed to be a remake that was assumed to be made or being made via FTC records that were not carefully withheld.
Yeah, well, they had to be released,
Yeah.
and people saw that Virtuous was working on an
Right.
Oblivion Remaster, which was weird at the time because there was a mod being developed called Skyblivion by fans.
But it's not any. But you would say it's. Would you say it's weirder now? Any weirder
Yes.
now that
Well,
it's actually kind of real, even though it's not real.
So
yeah.
there are levels to this, right? Like, how many times has Skyrim been released? Like, I can't count it right now, but it's
Yeah.
probably like 10 times.
Yeah.
Almost 10 times, 6, at least a half dozen, right? How many times has Oblivion been re-released? Like,
Well,
I guess technically twice, because
What, a
it
Game of the
came to
Year?
360 and PC, and then came to PS3 with, I think, the Game of the Year edition a year
Right.
later. So that's been it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that game was critically acclaimed. People really liked it. But the problem is that Skyrim came out, and that game took the fuck off to the point where like everything Bethesda had made before was almost forgotten about. Not even forgotten about. It was just like such a huge player base compared to Oblivion, which was successful in its own right, but not anything compared to what we got from Skyrim.
And continues.
Yes,
Which Skyrim
and
continues to be this.
And now, like a couple years ago, those documents got released that a Oblivion remake is being developed, which is cool, but it feels like it's 10 years too late.
Right.
Like, where was that Oblivion remake? You know, like, it would have made a lot of sense for that Oblivion remaster to hit after Skyrim's success, you know? Like, when the Xbox One came out around that time.
To
But
bring
instead, it was
Oblivion.
just Skyrim re-release. So re-release it on Xbox One, and then they released it on Switch, and then they did a version for Series X and PS5, and then they did probably on your phone you can play Skyrim. I actually don't know if you can play it on your phone, but probably you can. Who cares? I've never played that way. And now, after all these years, we're getting it, but there is a modding team developing Skyblivion, and I get it, right? Like, Bethesda can't make, I mean, Bethesda, I guess, technically can make money off of Skyblivion, because in order to play Skyblivion, you need
have
to
to
own
own.
Oblivion and Skyrim.
Do you have to own both?
I believe you have to own both, because, or maybe just Skyrim, but you have to own one of those games in order to play it. I think you do have to own both, because I think you need Oblivion in order to import the voiceover into. So with Skyblivion, they can't use any assets from Oblivion in that game, or in that mod.
In theory, you could play Skyblivion, but it would just have no voice acting.
Well, but they this is last I checked, but they developed like a mod that basically imports the
Oblivion
dialogue.
Okay.
So anyway, we're coming to this because Oblivion, this remake, has been rumored to shadow drop for, I feel like, this entire year, basically.
Yes.
They've been like saying, people have been saying, including, Jeff Grubb, who does our news show, has been saying this Oblivion remake is going to drop
Every day
any
now. Any day now.
Which also I think is weird because, as we talked about, The Elder Scrolls V was one of the biggest games of all time. There's hype around it, but there's no there's no marketing. Like, if it's just going to get released, it'll get released and there'll be some ads for it and it'll be like, it's out now. But that also kind of breaks my brain. Like, I know Todd Howard likes to he used to say that he liked to give as little lead time from announcement to release. Not the case anymore.
Wait a minute, what about Elder Scrolls 6?
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not anymore. Because Elder Scrolls 6 was announced forever ago and it's not out yet. And Starfield was announced like 5 years before.
Yes.
I think Starfield was announced like 6 years before.
Weren't they announced at the same time? Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield?
Yeah, they were both announced back to back.
Yeah.
But with Fallout 4, that was announced a couple months before it came out. Fallout 76,
yeah, 76
that was
came
announced.
out. Yeah.
Or that was announced a couple of months before it came out. And Todd said he liked to do that because So
this is the extreme to that. He's not even going to say anything. He's going to cough, and then he's going to cough on the button, and that makes it go live. It's like, oh.
But that's why it's so weird to me, because I feel like with a release like this, and the excitement around it, maybe that's why they don't need to do a traditional PR campaign. But I feel like they could build hype for it that way. And like right now, the issue that we're kind of running into, right, is like there are details leaked about this remake, right? It's going to be developed by Virtuous, which pretty sure that's the case because their website
has been nuked. I mean, you can't even go to the site right now.
Yeah, it got 403
or whatever.
But there's like what people have pulled from that is like it's going to have revamped combat. Not combat.
I made a list. Souls-like blocking.
Like what the does that mean? Like what does that mean in context? And these are questions that like PR could clear up.
And also, I mean, to be clear, this information did come from a tweet.
It did, yeah.
Along with those screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
But like considering how much information people have seemed to have already known, it's like we can assume that these things are probably par for the course, including enhanced reactions.
What does that mean? Like enhanced combat reactions? Like if
before in that game, it was just
they just kind of
no reaction.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. Stealth icons. That's the one I have no idea what.
Is that like? I think it's like over their head where they can like kind of see. Like how games do that, where if you're getting near an enemy and they have like a little thing over their head, a meter that.
But Skyrim didn't do that.
No, it didn't. Well, they had the eye, right? That like.
Well, before we get into all this though, there is one thing that I wanted to address with you.
Okay.
As a hardcore Oblivion fan, someone who's done a retrospective review on Oblivion, which is great, and you've also done a video on Skyblivion.
Yes.
We talk about all these new features and all these things that they've kind of hinted at, but like what does this, and also they're not calling it a remake, it is being branded as a remaster.
Yeah.
Which at this point doesn't even make sense anymore because like Metroid Prime was considered a remaster, but they remade all those assets.
Yeah, and
it's like, where do you
those
controls and all that jazz.
If those images that were leaked are in fact true,
those are remakes. And
if it's being remade in Unreal Engine 5,
it's not a
I
remaster.
don't understand how it would be considered a remaster. I don't know. That's semantics. Doesn't matter.
I know, but the one thing I want to ask you is what, like all the weirdness aside from there being already something in development to play it, what does this remaster need to be?
It needs to be bad. It needs to be bad. That's the thing with Oblivion. Oblivion was earth-shattering for me when it came out, right? Like, I had never played anything like that. I didn't play Morrowind. I'd heard of Morrowind, and it seemed cool, but those load times were eternal. It was very... I don't know, I think I was just too young to really get into Morrowind at the time. And I played Oblivion, and it blew my mind. I was like, I didn't know games could be like this.
There's something really small, like when I first played that game, where it's like, I could leave an item here, and it'll just be there forever.
It'll be there, yeah. Unless your game starts to slow down, you have to clear the cache, and you have the whole day.
It was like I could drop a coin on this grass and like come back 100 hours later.
And that coin
will be there. It's like, It sounds so, I don't know. It still sounds magical to me.
It's
like,
things
oh.
like that,
Yeah.
which blew me away. But as I said, Oblivion's bad. Like
You said it's held together
the
with
combat
duct tape.
sucks.
Yeah.
I think they had about 4 voice actors for a cast of 250 or something like that. It looks like dog shit.
It did when it came out. That's important to note. Like, it looked weird when it came out.
It looked awkward when it came out. The leveling is interesting but busted. It is. I mean, I showed you this morning. There are straight up flub voice lines in the game of people reading a line, stopping, and going, "Sorry, I have to do that again," and then rereading it. So this game is bad, right? And I think that's part of the charm for me. And I know people talk about like that Bethesda jank. There's like kind of a nostalgic feel to it.
There's a different thing with Oblivion because it's not like the game is buggy. The game has this weird jankiness, but like there's blemishes.
There is a charm.
There's like charm to, only using 4 voice actors for everyone, and you hear 2 people talking to each other, and it's the same person exchanging dialogue.
And I think that's what worries me about the idea of a remake is like if you make Oblivion feel like a modern experience, I don't think it has that charm to it. And that's what kind of worries me the most about the idea of a remake. Like I said, because of this weird shadow drop, we officially know nothing, right? Like obviously that stuff got leaked. Could be wrong, could be talking out of my ass here. But I feel like for Oblivion to be Oblivion, it needs to be broken in a way. And like there are things that I hope that will be kept intact. Like I imagine they're not re-recording all of the dialogue, especially considering some of the cast they had. Like they had Sir Patrick Stewart voice the Emperor.
Yeah.
Sean Bean voiced pretty much the main character in the game. That's all I remember for big names. But like also like the dialogue is so dumb. Mm-hmm. Like every single character gives you their entire life story when you talk to them.
You never ask for them.
Like, "Hi, I'm Boromir. I was born here, and my father taught me how to run the stables. And these stables plowing home. I'll be here forever. Would you like to buy a horse?" And it's just like, yeah, goodbye. And it's like, this is the stupidest writing ever.
It's like walked in to buy a beer.
But I love it.
It's like, what's going on? There's also little things that it's hard to imagine. Like, there's a part of it where I tend to think remasters and stuff are kind of a necessary evil, if you will, to be able to make sure like things can live on and stand the test of time. The weird thing about this game is that it is available to play on PC. Yeah. It doesn't, like, it runs good. Yeah. It's like, it's totally functionable, even without mods. The only place where there's a struggle is consoles. So it's like, there isn't really a means to play it on a console.
Yeah, I mean, it is backwards compatible. I think you can get it on Xbox, right? But not really PlayStation. And I don't even think you'd want to because I don't know if you remember this, but like Bethesda games on PlayStation were even more buggy. Like Skyrim deleted saves after a while, right? And like I think they had a similar issue with Oblivion.
My how I played Oblivion and Skyrim were both on a PS3, and it was bad. It was like not a good experience. And I guess like the main thing that you were talking about is like the spirit, spirit of a thing, not just like the Bethesda jank. I'm talking about going in a third person and watching that jump animation and just like kind of glide through the air. It seems like such a complex game of like many issues and systems that are like all kind of broken in their own weird, charming, connective way that fixing one of them feels like an impossible task to fix all of them. They all kind of like domino effect into each other that make that experience that experience.
And look, I hope I'm, like maybe they'll come out with this remake and it'll fix all those issues and it'll still be a great game and I'll spend hundreds of hours. I'll probably spend hundreds of hours anyway playing it. But like, I don't know. I just have so much trouble imagining Oblivion being good in the way that people want a game to be good.
I imagine this is just going to be a different experience.
Yeah,
I mean through and through. I guess we'll have to find out. But there is also the most definitive thing that we've seen are the screenshots.
Yes.
What's your take on that color?
I think I need to play it first to like really make a decision on the color. The copium I'm huffing is that when Oblivion first came out, the entire world was just green forest. And what I'm thinking is that, Cyrodiil is divided in different regions, and they're supposed to have distinct looks. And I'm hoping that, the reason that screenshot that got leaked looks kind of brown, sepia tone is because that's sort of the vibe of that region, and it'll change depending on where you are. I don't know if I'm expecting time of day. New lighting, like I said, Unreal 5, that's maybe it's just
that screenshot, that moment.
Exactly.
That thing.
Exactly.
All right, well, I guess we will have to.
Hey!
Whoa.
Are you guys talking about the Oblivion Remaster without me?
What are you doing here? Aren't you? Who's switching cameras? You're the production director. What do you?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm here because I have things to say about the Oblivion Remaster. And to be frank, I'm kind of embarrassed for you that you didn't think to ask me on, because I've played it.
Well,
a lot.
You've played the remaster?
The original.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi, Jean-Luc Sci-Fi, the other Oblivion freak of GameSpot. What would you like to say?
Glad you asked, Kurt. So, first off, the color change, absolute bullshit. Dude, what is this brown fucking garbage? Jesus Christ. Did, they accidentally, switch the color palettes with the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake? That game looks colorful now instead of yellow, and this game looks yellow? That's ridiculous. And, also, Unreal Engine 5, where's the jank? It's like what you said, but even more so. Just I need heads to be rolling in the back. I need I need this game to look like absolute garbage. Also,
we're gonna
mod
be
support, is mod support going to be happening possible with this game with Unreal Engine 5?
You're watching the GameSpot Show. Stick around because we'll be right back.
On the next Games of Our Lives.
Yeah, that's right. You smell of poo. Why do we not talk anymore? We used to talk every day.
I know what you did!
It's gonna blow!
To be pop. There needs to
Welcome
be
back to the
magic.
GameSpot Show,
There needs to
everyone.
be fantasy.
Jean-Luc Sci-Fi is still here and talking about Oblivion, but thankfully, you can keep doing your thing. Keep talking.
Okay.
I'm gonna go talk. This next segment is about Cronos, the New Dawn. I'm gonna talk about it right over here.
All right, folks.
In the meantime, if you want to just turn down
So
Jean-Luc's
I
audio.
think we all know the importance of color, and
Hey, do you like 12 Monkeys? Do you like weird, twisted sci-fi time travel stuff like the show Dark, or maybe horror like The Thing? Well, I got news for you. You're probably going to be really into Cronos, the New Dawn.
Again. Animals. Fighting. Again.
Okay, so Cronos the New Dawn is the new sci-fi survival horror game from Blooper Team. But not the Blooper Team that just made Silent Hill 2, but the first party team of Blooper Team. These are the people who did The Medium and Layers of Fear. So while Silent Hill 2 was cooking up, they had another game cooking up called Cronos, the New Dawn. So what is it? As mentioned, Cronos the New Dawn is basically if you take twisted, messed up sci-fi time travel stories like 12 Monkeys and Dark. In fact, the directors of this game specifically mentioned Dark as inspiration and combine that with very classic survival horror, especially of the most recent Resident Evil remakes, and I guess the Silent Hill 2 remake fits in that. But their inspiration specifically came from basically all forms of horror in this case. Combined together with The Thing, you get Cronos the New Dawn. Now, we saw 50 minutes of hands-off gameplay, so we don't have any of our own bespoke B-roll to show, but I can at least do my best to explain what it is. And it's like all time travel sci-fi shit. It's complicated. So you play as this kind of cool scuba diving looking time traveler, and that suit is fireproof, which is an important note because fire is a big deal in this game. And you're basically traveling back in time before some big catastrophic event happens, and it's basically like a rescue mission for you to go in and get these people out. But while that's happening, there is, gooey, tentacle-y body horror stuff all over the place. And well, you gotta fight it and, literally kill it with fire. The cool part about this game is that it's trying, like, all of its inspirations are on its sleeve. It's clearly inspired by Resident Evil 4 style horror, but it's also clearly inspired by Dead Space. But it also is clearly inspired by Dark and all the other things that they've mentioned. It is this perfect amalgamation of all these things these two directors love, and they just smashed it together. And I think one of the most appealing things for me is that it's not just like more sci-fi, like in space horror, but it's very grounded. It feels in a believable space and city, this 1980s Poland city, but with futuristic stuff in the mixture. Now, of course, there's clearly a lot of pressure on the Blooper team because no one thought they could do Silent Hill 2 Remake, or at least that was the assumption, that people were very weary of whether or not they can take on such a daunting task to remake one of the greatest games of all time. Now there's this pressure of them leading off the heels of Silent Hill 2 and doing something that is completely new, a new IP and new to the team. And something that's really fascinating to look at Blooper Team is with every consecutive title, there seems to be this evolution in gameplay. They started, like, Layers of Fear is like this it's you're walking around halls and you're solving puzzles. There's not a lot of gameplay elements, but then the medium kind of took that a step forward with like various bespoke camera angles, switching between like two realities, and then there's puzzles. And then Silent Hill 2 Remake like did full combat, gunplay, all that jazz, and now Cronos seems like a very natural evolution of that. It's also important to note that this game was being made in production for 4 years, so it's happening kind of simultaneously during Silent Hill 2. Just a thing, just a thought. So now we get to see Blooper Team like full force, like doing gunplay, doing bigger environments than they've ever done before, like bigger effects, monsters, lots of different variety of things that are going on in it. And the thing that's that stuck out to me the most is in an era where survival horror has been going through a renaissance for the past few years, basically since the Resident Evil 2 remake. It's getting to a point where like, how can this evolve any more than it already has? Like Resident Evil 4 Remake set a new bar. I would say Silent Hill 2 Remake has now set a new bar. So where does Cronos fit in that? And I think the most fascinating thing that Cronos is doing is its enemies, because it's not just about like dodging and weaving and resource management and dealing with scary shit, but the more enemies you kill, the more there is a chance for a living enemy to absorb a dead enemy and then become like more monstrous, gooey thing-like creature. So during our gameplay, we got to see this sort of like dance in, do you kill all 4 of these enemies only for one to maybe potentially become a bigger, badder, stronger enemy? And that's cool. That's what I call scary. Speaking of inspirations, the idea of monsters becoming stronger by absorbing other monsters is reminiscent of another remake of a survival horror game, Resident Evil 1 Remake. Specifically, the Crimson Heads, which the developers said themselves as we were watching it, that's the kind of inspiration. So if you don't know, in Resident Evil 1, like there gets to a certain point where you've killed all these zombies and you're like, I'm cool, I've cleared out this mansion. You skin chewers ain't got nothing on me because I already knocked your ass down. Until the Crimson thing happens and they all fucking get back up and they're way worse than last time.
Crimson Head's genuinely like so terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, one of the coolest things in like any video game.
Especially if you don't know when it's coming.
Yes.
Now Cronos, the New Dawn is only Crimson Heads. The entire game.
Oops, all Crimson Heads.
You're just dealing with that thing. So if you're familiar with survival horror of today, the combat is very much in line with that. It's over the shoulder. Everything's very tight. You're going to be in tight spaces with these creatures, and you're going to have limited ammo, and you're going to be kind of doing a jig and a dance around these things, a waltz, if you will, in order to survive. Interesting part is that every gun you use actually has a charge hit, so you can actually like hold the trigger down and do a more powerful attack, which kind of leads to this risk reward if you think you can knock one of these things down with a charged hit when they're only 2 feet away from you. So it creates a different dynamic and sort of flow to combat that has usually traditionally just been like shoot, retreat, dodge, wiggle, do a dance with these skin chewers and all that. The other element is that killing these things just aren't as simple as shooting them and dying, because as I mentioned, another one can come along and get more powerful. So how do you deal with that, buddy old pal? Fire. That's where I was mentioning earlier where your suit is actually fireproof because you actually have this sick mechanic where you can like shoot fire from your hands onto the ground and create like this ripple effect of flames around your feet to knock things away from you or set them on fire. And by burning these bodies, they can no longer be absorbed by another creature. But of course, because it's a survival horror game, that fire is a resource that you have to manage. So you kind of have to decide whether or not you're going to burn these bodies or risk the biscuit, as they say, and hope that, you don't come back to a bigger problem when you leave a bunch of dead bodies and then another creature comes along and absorbs those and then you got a bigger issue, so on and so forth. So it creates this interesting dynamic of like gamifying, how you, kind of like the Crimson Heads, which you have to set on fire in the original game, in the original Resident Evil 4 1 remake, but it creates a new sort of like, I don't know, dance on how you do this, how you deal with an enemy down the line. You have to think about, like, you have to plan kind of down the line how you might have to deal with a fight. Of course, it's alleviated with the ye old flame barrel that just people just kind of tend to leave around the world. I mean, like, I don't know about you, but when I'm walking down the street, I'm not seeing like tanks of gas just chilling on the side of the road getting ready to be shot at any moment.
Maybe not in your neighborhood.
You know what? You're right. I need to get out more. And of course, in fashion of the genre, you will be going back and forth through an environment, so you will be trailing behind certain areas. They didn't quite say like that it's going to be, maybe Resident Evil 1 mansion style sort of design or 2 in that way, that you'll be backtracking a lot, but it does seem like there are these levels or these sort of hubs that will require you to maneuver and snake through environments.
Kind of like RE4 style,
Kind of like RE4.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you have these like mini areas that you will have to navigate, open things, get information, fight stuff. But at the end of the demo I saw, it required the player to go all the way back out from where they started. So that means, dealing with problems they didn't, face when they arrived, which is a valuable life lesson. If something hard comes up, just, face it head on.
Shoot a barrel.
Shoot a gasoline barrel. Burn that problem down to the ground so it doesn't mesh and mold into something else. See, Cronos the New Dawn is actually just a metaphor for dealing with your issues. Don't let them fester. Become a gooey mess. I wish I could tell you more about the story, but at this point, there isn't much to say. We did get a gameplay trailer, so at least you can have some context of some of the stuff I'm talking about. The game is supposed to come out this year, but I will say it is a new dawn for the Blooper Team. This is post Silent Hill 2, and they've, I think they're finding a new set of feet to run around in and set stuff on fire. I'm very excited for it. As a survival horror nut, keep them coming. Keep trying things new. Keep that wreck creature away from me, though. I don't want to look at her. I don't want to know she exists. So I might, be making a mistake playing Cronos the New Dawn, but I could set that bitch on fire. That's the difference. All right, and that wraps up the GameSpot Show. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been your host, Kurt Navina. It's been a pleasure talking to Jake and I guess Jean-Luc about Oblivion. Anyways, for everything video games and all that jazz, hang out here with us. All right, see you next time. Bye, folks. All right, that's a wrap. That's a wrap. Come on out. Way to go, my team. Oh, God. Here. You want to see? You want me to draw? You want me to draw? I'm done with this. I'm done. You want to see something?
If only I had like a color Pantone book to come out with.
Yeah, like an actual.